I cannot believe what's going on with college football. Where does this all end? Are we going to end up with 2 super conferences or 3 super conferences?
I don't know. You do feel more pressure for consolidation. I think what's unusual, first of all, college football is the #2 sport in America. And it's a big business, it's a multifaceted, and it's run by a very fragmented industry. And so it's a bit unwieldy. And I think what you see is that the suppliers, the TV networks, have a bigger say because of the fragmentation and the lack of really a unified vision or leadership in college sports. So therefore, it's a little bit of the Wild West.
We'll start exactly there. Who is running it? Is it college presidents? Is it athletic directors? Is it the television providers? Is it the Congress? Who's running it at this point?
It's really the college presidents of the individual universities. But as you've seen, they're not always loyal either. USC, UCLA leaving the Pac-12, a conference that had been around since 1915, right? And so it's very fragmented and self-interested. There isn't a unifying group that looks out for college sports and has the ability to lead college football.
What's going on with streaming? I mean, we see this with ESPN right now, ESPN Plus. We've just had earnings come out of Disney. That seems to be changing sports. Back in the old days when I was involved with ESPN, you knew how much money was coming up because of those basic cable deals. Those seem to be going away. How's that going to change the business?
Well, it's in transition, but what you see really, a lot of the leagues today have tied their rights up long-term to linear television. So the money's in linear television, but the new viewers and new consumers are in streaming. And also, as you point out, the margins are quite different between linear and the cable bundle than they might be for streaming. So it's going to be a 10 to 15-year transition, and we're at the early days of that. I think you'll see in the NBA, they'll do a streaming deal as part of their national package, I think to help mitigate some of the challenges that cord cutting is creating for regional sports networks. So I think it'll be a transition, an evolution, not a revolution.
Is college football going to learn something from the NFL? I mean, Roger Goodell seems to have been pretty masterful at adding some of the streaming services and not losing the basic cable and other television rights, and just keeps adding the revenue, it seems like.
Yeah, I do think you're going to see it. You haven't really seen any major conference yet do a streaming deal. I mean, I think you'll see games on ESPN Plus. You'll probably see games on Peacock, but you haven't seen Apple or Amazon invest yet, but I think it'll come eventually.
Wasn't Apple really flirting with the Pac-12, in fact?
They were flirting with the Pac-12, put in a meaningful offer, but in the end, it couldn't match the linear opportunities that those schools had at the other conferences.
The Pac-12, and who knows what's going to remain of the Pac-12 at this point. Pac-12 had a streaming strategy, as I understand it. They were really going to go into streaming. It didn't work out for them. What went wrong there?
Well, I think that just the stability of the league, I think the schools felt more comfortable with the money and stability that the linear television package offered versus the instability and the less dollars that the streamers provided. And I think there was some disagreement between certain schools, but at the end of the day, I think people opted for stability and more money from the linear television.
What about the athletes themselves? There's been a lot of question about whether they should get paid. We now have the name, image, likeness phenomenon going on, so I guess they can get some licensing money. But are we going to start paying our college players?
I think that's the big question, David. I think the courts are going to be looking at that in the next 5 or so years. What is the definition of an employee? Do the student athletes meet that definition? The courts historically have been very deferential to the college model, and that's changing. So most of the most recent rulings have actually favored the athletes being paid. And where I see this going, unless somebody steps in, is that the students, athletes are going to be bargaining collectively like they do in the other leagues, not just for money, but also work conditions. Again, college football, bigger than the NBA, bigger than Major League Baseball. Those athletes are being paid a lot of money. These athletes are not being paid any money. I don't think it's a revolution. I hope it's an evolution, a modernization of the game, much in the way the Olympics modernized. You know, before you didn't have pro athletes in the Olympics, today you do. People still love the Olympics. I think you're going to have to modernize. College football is generating anywhere from $5 to $7 billion a year. It's hard to conceive that the participants in those games are not participating in a more meaningful way financially.
Huge business for all the reasons you just described. Are there going to be investment opportunities? We've seen in professional sports teams, as we've gotten private equity interested in it, we even have some sovereign wealth funds who are saying they'd like to participate. We'll see how far that goes. But it's turned into an investment, not just something that a rich person buys as an ego thing. Is there a potential somehow for private equity, sovereign wealth funds, other investors to get involved in college football?
There could be. I mean, you're hearing today from Florida State, that's a hired JP Morgan to look at different investment opportunities for more non-traditional investors. So maybe that might be the beginning of that. I don't know. It's unclear at the moment.
You know the sport, you love the sport. Are all these developments, do you think, going to be good for the sport? And by the way, good for me as the viewer of my Michigan football team.
Yeah, you know, change is inevitable in life, so you have to adapt to change. I would love to see the change come from within the industry. I'd love to see the industry coalesce and lead the change, because they're the most knowledgeable people to lead it. My fear is that the courts, just like with the NIL, are going to lead it, because the industry won't be able to have a consensus. So my hope is that the industry leads the change and not the courts, but I'm very concerned that the courts will lead the change.